I'm Kirsten. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Assistance with the Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I've been here since 1995, and I started as a 19-year-old college student at a crisis line in 1985. So I have been around for a while, and I have seen some changes nationally and here in Iowa as far as this work, this movement. You know, when I think about what has changed, I really think two ways things have changed. What's happened legislatively and kind of the policies and things around domestic violence, and what's happened within our movement and how we interact with survivors and how we provide services. And obviously those things are interconnected, but you know, nationally, when I think about when I was first that eager young college student doing some of this work, domestic violence became against the law in 1980 in Iowa, so it was only about 5 years in when I started, and marital rape became against the law in 1989. And I can remember those arguments in the legislature where they were saying things like, well, if you can't rape your wife, who can you rape? And it's like having the cow but not being able to have the milk. And I would like to say that if we were trying to pass a bill today that we wouldn't get those same discussions, but I don't know that I can say that. Nationally, we had the Violence Against Women Act passed in '94, and that not only brought a lot of attention to the issues of domestic and sexual violence, but it also pumped a lot of money into our work, into the criminal justice system in particular, in terms of responding. It's almost like we were able right at the beginning of the 80s to convince people that domestic violence was a bad thing and was a crime. And then as a society said, well, if it's a crime, then it's the criminal justice's problem to stop it and to solve it. As the movement began to build, people began to build actual agencies and incorporating, buying offices, buying houses. And so it's kind of like the difference between making muffins in your kitchen and selling those as a small business and then opening up a restaurant. And we got to that point, again, partly with the Violence Against Women Act and other monies that were starting to come in, of opening up our own restaurants. We really opened in kind of a buffet model. Here's our services. You can have mashed potatoes, you can have corn, you can have chicken, you can have meatloaf, and I picked those out very specifically because they were very much aimed at a particular audience, what the services were. 2012, by that time the buffet at our services restaurant was down to very, very little. And we took a very hard look at what resources we had and the idea that we weren't going to be getting a whole lot. Knew there was no reason to assume that things were going to change, and asked ourselves, is a buffet restaurant really serving the most? Because there were a lot of resources, you know, at a buffet, if people don't come and eat that chicken, you toss that chicken, and those resources aren't used. And we had open beds in shelters. It was almost entirely a shelter model. We said that most of our programs were dual, and that they were both sexual assault and domestic abuse, but usually the sexual assault stuff kind of came as an afterthought and was secondary to housing and running a shelter. And ironically, 90% of our clients said, I don't need shelter. Interesting to me about that is that in some ways we went right back to the beginning, where we got much more specific to that person and said, rather than here's our buffet, is there anything on there that works for you? Saying, tell me about you. Tell me about your situation, and let's figure out what works for you.